Okay, so let's get started. My name is Professor Lena Ciric. I am the Centre Director for the EPSRC and BBSRC Centre for Doctoral Training in Engineering Solutions for Antimicrobial Resistance. Welcome to the second virtual open day that we're holding. With me, I've got Susie Emmett, who's here to help me field any questions that I might miss if there's lots of them in the chat. I'd like you to please keep your questions to until the end of the presentation, if that's okay. And then we will answer them all at the end. So first of all, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of the CDT, what it is that we're trying to achieve, what you'll be doing, the sort of funding that we have available for you. And then you'll have the opportunity to ask some questions at the end. I'm also going to cover a little bit about the application process and what the application itself looks like and what the interviews will look like too. Okay, so let's get going. First of all, a little bit about the aims of the CDT. So as you all hopefully know, antimicrobial resistance is a really complex problem. It's not something that can be solved by just limiting prescribing or finding a new antibiotic. It's something a lot more complicated than that. What we really need are people who can lead and coordinate activities that are sort of synchronized across governments and industries, and as well as the different research disciplines. So the aims of our CDT are for you to gain some really in-depth, specialized scientific and engineering skills, which you will acquire through working on your particular research project, but then also gain a breadth of knowledge that covers some of the wider aspects, such as translating research into policy or into technology, the public health context, how this field is regulated and standardized, how we might implement solutions for antimicrobial resistance, how these solutions might be adopted and how we can optimize adoption. We'll also want you to learn about public awareness and public perception of antimicrobial resistance and how we can best communicate with different audiences to get the message across. So a little bit about the study program. So here you've got a schematic of what the study program looks like. On the left side, we have recruitment. So that's what's happening at the moment. And we're recruiting our student cohorts according to research excellence, fit to our particular program, and diversity. So we want to have a diverse cohort, both from a life and a discipline perspective. We want to make sure that all of our students are really keen to be part of this CDT. And we also want to make sure that you're all excellent researchers. On the other end, when you finished your PhD, and I guess throughout your PhD, we have the outputs. And we're really keen for you to have an impact in academia, but also in industry, policy, and healthcare. And the reason for this is that we want the research that you do to mean something and to make a difference in the world. And in order to do this, we have teamed up with lots of external partners from industry, government, and the healthcare for you to work with during your projects, but also during some of the training that you'll receive as part of CDT, which I'll tell you about in a second. From the point of view of your research project, you will start working on this from day one. So you'll be working on your project from day one of year one through to the end of year 4. And just before the end of year 4, you will submit your thesis and then be examined and have your viva a little bit after that. You will all have a thesis committee, which will be made up of your supervisors, but also a number of experts in the field that are not part of your PhD. And they will meet with you regularly throughout your PhD period. And then you will also upgrade from MPhil to PhD status at some point in year 1 or year 2 of your PhD. There's no specific MSc or MRes qualification that you'll gain as part of this CDT, but there is some training that you will all receive, which I'll tell you a little bit about now. So if we look at the middle part of the schematic now, so the bits underneath year 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can see that there are some whole cohort training modules in year 1. So we've got the ABC of AMR, and this is looking at the sort of theory and practice context of AMR, everything from what is a microbe to how to design a new vaccine. We also have a whole cohort module on AMR research skills. So this is looking at specific research skills like, my brain's just died, literature, you know, the best way to do literature reviews, statistical methods that are applicable to you, perhaps some modeling techniques as well. And we also have a whole cohort module on AMR impact. So this is about translating your research into impact with industry or within government through policy, or potentially looking at public engagement and how best to publish your research within academic journals, but perhaps also further afield with working with media and so on. Then you'll see under years 2, 3, and 4, we have this bespoke technical skills and impact training. So these bits of training will be, rather than for the whole cohort, it'll be more on an individual basis, depending on what it is that you need for your particular research. So, for example, if you're working on a novel antimicrobial, then perhaps we want you might want to take some training courses in entrepreneurship or translation to industry, or regulation of antimicrobials in the pharmaceutical industry, and so on. Similarly, for research skills training and impact training, depending on what it is that you're doing from a research point of view, but also what you're interested in, you can pick particular bits of training that are relevant to your research project and to your interests. We have some funding earmarked for each of our students specifically for this bespoke training that will happen in years 2, 3, and 4. One last thing to mention on this schematic is the network engagement. So within UCL, there's a number of different CDTs, and some of these are complementary to the one to our one. So we're going to work hard to make sure that there's some cross fertilization between the different CDTs. There are also a few different UCL networks, like the microbiology at UCL domain, research domain, which is one that we want you to all be a part of. And then there are other external networks that we'll also be working with. So for example, there's the Centre for AMR at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine that we'll also work with. So that's it on the study programme. I'm going to just quickly go through our research themes. So we have 3 research themes within our CDT. These are preventing infections, which is our theme 1. Surveillance and diagnostics, which is our theme 2, and then novel therapies, which is theme 3. I'm going to very quickly whiz through the next few slides. These are the titles of all the projects that we've got on offer for our 2025 cohort. You can find out much more about all of these projects on our website. So these are just the titles here, but on the website, you will also see who the supervisors are for each of these projects. And you can click on those links and find out more about those people. But there's also a 500-word summary of the project. So, you know, what are the aims, what you'll be doing, what skills you'll gain, what are the impacts of that project. So at the moment, we've got the theme 1 project. So this is the infection prevention lot. Then here we have the theme 2 project. So this is looking at surveillance and diagnostics. So what AMR genes are most common, how are we detecting these, what are the novel ways that we can detect them more quickly rather than detection taking days as it does now. And then finally, this is our theme 3. So this is novel therapeutics, which includes both novel antimicrobials and vaccines. And as I said, for all of these projects, you can find out a lot more on our website. I just want to highlight to you at this stage that during your application, you will need to select up to 3 preferred projects that you are interested in. Okay. So now a little bit about the community that you'll be entering at UCL. So the 2025 CDT cohort will be our first one. We are aiming to recruit 10 students during this recruitment exercise at the moment. So each student cohort will have its year reps, and the CDT will be running for we'll take in 4 cohorts to start off with. So there'll be this first one in 25, and then another 3 cohorts of 10 students in 2026, 27, and 28. So the CDT at the moment has funding to run for 8 years, but we will most likely be applying for renewal in a few years' time. So as I said, yeah, every cohort will have its year reps, and every student will have their individual student mentor. So for the later cohorts, these will be the students from the earlier cohorts. For our first and second cohort of students, the mentors will come from your supervisors, more senior PhD students. The CDT itself will have a student and staff consultative committee, sorry, that's a bit of a mouthful, which will meet every term to discuss how things are going, whether there are any issues and how we can fix these quickly. You will also have the CDT management team working with you, so I'll tell you a little bit more about those people in a second. And there will also be the CDT professional services team, which will consist of 3 individuals who will be there to make sure that you're progressing as you should be, that you're getting paid, that all of your expenses are put through as they should be, that everything that you need for your research is being ordered efficiently. You will have your primary and secondary supervisor, who will also be working with you. As I said before, you will also have the thesis committee for each of the different studentships. You will be joining the London's Centre for Nanotechnology, which has another 2 CDTs running alongside this one. So there's a whole community of students there that you will be spending time with. And then there's the UCL Doctoral School, which oversees all of the doctoral students across UCL in all of our different departments. So there are sort of different tiers of community that you will be joining, that you will benefit from. Okay, so a little bit about the CDT team. So you can see me at the top there. I'm the CDT director, and then the sort of core management team is made up of Dr. Philip Pearce, who is looking after the curriculum. So he's putting together the ABC of AMR and all of the other training bits that you'll be doing in year 1. Then we have Dr. Mike Thomas, who is in charge of equality, diversity and inclusion and pastoral care. He'll be heading up the student and staff consultative committee. We have Professor Manish Tiwari, who is in charge of partnerships. So this is all of the partnerships that we have with industry, government and healthcare. He's also the CDT Deputy Director. And then Professor Giorgio Volpe, who is in charge of recruitment, who is has put in motion all of the things that we are going through at the moment. You will see then at the bottom in yellow, we have the theme leads. So these are our 3 research themes. We have Richard Beckett, who is in charge of the infection prevention theme together with me as his co-lead. Then we have Professor Rachel McKendry, who is in charge of the surveillance and diagnostics theme, together with Mike Thomas. And then Professor Joe Santini and Professor Bart Hugenboom, who are co-leads for the novel therapies theme. And then we have our CDT administration, our professional services team on the right in green. So we have the CDT manager, who's going to come on board in a couple of months' time. And then we have a full-time CDT administrator and a partnerships manager who will also be working with you. Okay. So a little bit on what we offer. So this is probably one of the things that you guys are the most interested in. So we're going to have at this stage 4 cohorts of 10 fully funded 4-year PhD studentships. For these studentships, we have the fees covered. We also have the standard UKRI stipend plus £3,000 per annum. What I've put up here, the £19,237, that's the current stipend for the year 2024-25. UKRI have not yet published what this amount is going to be for the 2025-26 academic year, which is when you guys will be joining. But it'll be a little bit more than what it is at the moment, probably near on about £20,000. Our studentships also cover £17,000 research costs. So this could be things like consumables or small bits of equipment, any sort of chemicals that you might need for your research. It could also be sophisticated computing equipment, depending on what sort of work that you're doing. We also have a travel budget for each student of £3,000, which is for things like international and national conferences and any sort of research visits that you might want to do. And then there's a training budget for each individual student. So this doesn't mean the things that we cover in year one. It's the bespoke training that you might undertake in years 2, 3, and 4 that will be covered by this £2,000. Another important thing to highlight is that our funding is constrained to only having 30% of our cohort made up of overseas students. So that means that for each cohort of 10 students, 7 will have to be UK students and up to 3 can be overseas students. And this will be done by UCL waiving the overseas fees. Okay, so just a little bit about the application process. So applications opened on the 1st of December. We had an open day, a virtual open day on the 18th of December, and here we are on the 14th of January having the second one. The applications will close at midnight on Sunday, the 26th of January. And then we will shortlist, and successful candidates will be invited to 2 interviews each. So the first interview will happen the week of the 10th to the 14th of February. And then the second interview for everyone will happen on the week of 17th to the 21st of February. There might be a little bit of movement on these, but in any case, we will aim to have them done, have everything absolutely done by the end of February, interviews-wise. We just want to make sure that we can accommodate all of our students. And we're aiming to make offers the week of the 24th to the 25th of February or very early at the beginning of March. And then these studentships will start in September 2025. I think the first day of the first term of the 2025-2026 academic year is the 22nd of September. Okay, and I think, as I mentioned before, our recruitment priorities are research excellence. So we want to see that you have carried out some research, that you're keen to do it and that you're good at it. We also want to make sure that you are a good fit for our program. So we want to see that you're particularly interested in joining our CDT, and we want to see why you think you are a good fit for it. And we're keen to have as diverse a cohort of students as we can possibly have. And this means both from a, life point of view, but also from a disciplinary point of view. So a little bit about the application form. So what we're collecting is some information on your contact details, your educational qualifications, relevant research experience that you have. We want to hear why you want to pursue a PhD. We want to hear why you're applying to this particular CDT. We want to hear why you think you're right for this particular CDT as well. We also want to hear about any relevant work experience you might have. We want to know which of the 15 projects that we have on offer you are interested in, and you're able to choose up to 3 of these. We also want to have the contact details of 2 referees for your application. We also have some equality, diversity, and inclusion data to collect, which is both for us and for our funder. So this will be anonymized, but we need to collect it just to make sure that we are getting as diverse a cohort as we possibly can, and how we can, if we're not, how we can improve this in future years. Okay, just a little bit about the interviews. So each candidate will attend 2 interviews. Most likely these will happen virtually, just because it's much easier to organize things virtually than getting people in and out in person. What we'll be assessing is your research experience, your motivation for pursuing a PhD, your fit to our CDT, your critical thinking and problem-solving skills, and your ability to overcome obstacles. Some things for you to prepare will be a 10-minute presentation about your research experience, and then a 5-minute pitch and a 200-word text summarizing a research paper that we'll send to you for you to have a look at and then summarize for us. Okay, so I think that's all that I have to say. You can find a lot more information on our website. I know you've all been there because that's how you've signed up to this virtual open day, and you can email us with any queries you might have at this email, cdt-amr@ucl.ac.uk. So I think I will stop there. Please go ahead and ask any questions that you have. So I'm more than happy for you to turn your camera and microphone on and ask questions, or you could pop questions into the chat. I'm going to stop sharing my presentation so that I can actually see the chat. Okay, let's have a look. So, any questions from everyone, or is everything super clear?
Hi, good evening, Professor.
Hello.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mohammed. Just quick question though. What if a candidate reside in UK? Is it going to be considered as an applicant from UK, or is it taken as an international student? Or if he's graduated from any UK university, does it mean that he carry on as an UK student or international student? I mean, what's the criteria to be an international applicant?
So the criteria, so I think if you are naturalized, then you would count as a UK student. If you require a visa to be studying at the moment, then you will again require a visa to study with us again, and that means that you would be an overseas student.
Right. Okay. Thanks very much. And if a student doesn't get the scholarship, I mean, doesn't get successful in getting the scholarship, which is could he still be able to study on a self-finance base, or paying the difference between the international and national students?
So we can't do it that way. You won't be able to self-finance just the fees, but get everything else paid through the CDT. The only other way for you to be, so you could be a self-funded student, but then it would have to be fully self-funded. And then you would almost be like an affiliate of the CDT. So it would mean that you could attend all of the ABC of AMR stuff. However, the funding would be totally different. So we have some quite strict rules about how the funding can be spent. So it's totally fine for affiliated students to attend sort of communal stuff, but none of the funds can be spent explicitly on the self-funded students, which is a bit annoying, but it's how it is, and can't break the rules, sadly.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I also had kind of a follow-up question to what was just asked. So is there kind of a process by which you let students know in case, say, they're fit to the program, they fit the diversity and research excellence requirements, but there is enough spaces, say for international students, there's only 3, but you do a lot of the criteria. Would you inform those students in the application? Like, how would that process kind of work?
Yeah, so what we're doing is that we're shortlisting all of our students. So whether they're UK or international applicants, we're shortlisting everyone on exactly the same criteria. And then, so we're going to go forward and interview the best students of the applications that we've had. And then once we have done the interviews, we will have to see, what sort of, once we do the interviews, I guess we will see, how well all of those applicants perform. And at that point, we will have to make a decision about how to fill up our quota of 10 students, 7 of which have to be UK. We are Absolutely. We're collecting from, so during our interview process, we're going to be collecting feedback for all of our candidates that have been interviewed, and we will send that feedback to everyone. So you will, whatever the outcome, you will get feedback on how you performed and why the decision was made that was made in the end. I expect that we will probably make, sorry, it's a slightly difficult balancing act that we have to perform, because you know, once we make offers to overseas students, there's still a number of steps that have to then take place, like you know, they have to obtain visas and so on in time to be able to arrive with us in September. So I think it might be that we have a few students as sort of, we might make an extra offer, then one more offer than the 3 that we're allowed to, just to make sure that we have 3 overseas students able to start with us in September. But we will make all of this super clear during the interview stage. I think at the moment we're still ironing out some of these details, and UCL is still deciding exactly how much funding it has to waive some of these fees. So nothing is quite set in stone, but all of this should be ironed out in the next couple of weeks. So by the time it comes to interviews, we'll be able to give you a more concrete answer on this. So sorry, that was a bit waffly, not very definitive, but I hope it was useful.
No, yeah, that answers the question. Thank you.
Okay. I can see this.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions on the chat.
Yes, I can see. So let me see this first. So I'm not sure if I missed this bit, but I just wanted to ask the process of contacting the referees. Would it occur within or after the application deadline? Yes, good question. So we are only going to contact referees for those candidates that we shortlist for interviews. So it'll happen after the application deadline. I think we are having our shortlisting meetings between the 29th and 31st of January. So the referees will be contacted at around the same time as we contact you to invite you for interview. Perfect. Good. Okay. And the next question says, thank you for the presentation. You're very welcome. What is the deadline for accepting offers for the program after an offer is given? That is a good question. And one that I have not really thought about in a lot of detail. I suspect that we will want you to respond to us within a few weeks. Certainly by the end of March. Yeah, I think that is relatively standard for CDT applications. Any other questions, either in the chat or in person? Do you have some approximation on the number of applications you are expecting to receive? It's a good question. I can tell you that we've received about 60 applications so far. We've got about 10-ish days to go, maybe a little bit longer than that. I'm expecting that we'll probably have about 100-ish. And we're aiming to interview about 30 to 40 students in total. And then that will hopefully whittle it down to our 10 studentships that we have on offer for 2025. Okay, are the interviews conducted by a committee or the individual project supervisors? No, they are going to be conducted by a committee. So you will have, so every student that's invited for interview will go to 2 interviews. The first interview will be a little bit more about your research experience, and your research interests and why you're interested in doing a PhD and why you want to come to this CDT. The second interview will be a little bit more about problem solving. So actually, sorry, the first interview, you'll also do your presentation about your research experience. Whereas in the second interview, you'll be doing the 5-minute pitch of the research publication. We'll be asking you a little bit more about problem solving and critical thinking and any obstacles that you've had to overcome in the past and examples of that. So they're two quite different interviews assessing two sort of quite different things. The panels are made up, so depending on which projects you choose during your application, you will go to one of 3 panels, and the 3 panels are either under theme 1, theme 2, or theme 3. So infection prevention, diagnostics and surveillance, and novel therapeutics. And then the panel, so there are 2 panels for theme 1, 2 panels for theme 2, 2 panels for theme 3. This all seems very complicated. I hope it's not overly complicated and that we have done this the right way. And then the 2 different panels for theme 1 are made up of the supervisors for theme 1 projects, for theme 2 made up of supervisors for theme 2 projects, and theme 3 supervisors for theme 3 projects, with a few of the CDT management team scattered in amongst them. Sorry, so that is the answer to that question. I hope it was understandable. I have another question here. I looked at the application form. I didn't see any section to upload the documents. Will it be in a last section? What's the difference between research experience and work experience in the application? Right, so first, that's a few questions in one question. So first of all, there's no uploads at all. Actually, we just want you to answer the questions that we have posed. So you have to select, we want to collect information about what qualifications you have educationally. And then we have 4 different questions which would cover what you would normally put in a personal statement. So a bit about your research experience and what you liked and what was exciting, a bit about why you want to do a PhD, a bit about why you want to join this CDT in particular, and a bit about why you think you're right for the CDT. So there's no upload at all. You just have to answer those questions. And I think you're quite limited in the number of words you have. So you need to think about the words that you use and make sure that you say everything you want to say concisely. The difference between research experience and work experience. So yes, good question. Research experience, I guess we are talking about any sort of research that you might have done. So this could be, this could be desk research. So it could be research that you've done on a computer. It could be laboratory research. It could be modeling work that you've done. It could be a literature review. And it could be under the guise of education. So this, what you might be describing, could be an MSc research project. It could be an undergraduate research project. It could be some research that you did as part of a job. I think the work experience is any sort of relevant experience you have had that's relevant to the CDT. And I guess this could be research, but it could also be, if you've worked in pharmaceuticals, have you got some experience of regulation of pharmaceuticals? If you've worked in healthcare, have you had to, culture some microbes to see if they're resistant to any particular types of antibiotics? Have you, within your work life, within your employed life, had to deal with some obstacles? Have you had to use critical thinking? Have you had to apply problem solving? So anything like that. Think creatively, something that you think is relevant to your application and will support the other things that you've said in your application up until that point. Right, we have another question. Do you suggest to contact supervisors before submitting our application? That is totally up to you, really. I think it would be wise to at least have a look at their profiles so that you know the sort of research that they do. You can have a look at some of their research papers because they will likely be similar to the sort of research that you might be doing with them. And by all means, I think, if if somebody contacted me about a research project that I had available, I would think that they're engaged and they want to know more and they could be a good candidate for me. And especially if you have any particular specific questions that you want to ask them, I would definitely suggest that you contact them. If you do want to contact them, if you so on the website, you have the project title, you have the two supervisor names, and they are both clickable links that will lead you to their profile at UCL. And on their profile, you'll be able to find their email, which you can then contact them on. Okay, I hope that answers all of the questions in the chat so far. Is there anything else? Yep, one last question. Can an applicant submit more than one application if one wanted to change the project choice? I think, well, so you can choose up to 3 projects. I think being interested in more than 3 projects might make us think that you're a bit not that interested in the first 3. So if you've changed your mind, I think it would probably be best to email us on that email CDT. So if you've already submitted an application and you've changed your mind, I think it would be better to email us on the AMR-CDT@ucl.ac.uk email and say, I'm really sorry, I made a mistake, blah, blah, blah. I want to do this instead. And then you can submit another application rather than just sending in more than one application. Because I think if we hear nothing from you and no specific reason as to why you've submitted multiple applications, we'll just think that you're a bit indecisive and maybe you're not then the best fit for us. So yeah, I hope that answers that question. Okay, anything else? Yes. Okay, so my background is in mechanical engineering. I pursued my master's in mechanical engineering and with specialization in advanced manufacturing. During my MSc, I've worked in additive manufacturing and reverse engineering as my master's project. Am I eligible to apply for the program? Absolutely, yes. Manufacturing and sort of process engineering is absolutely relevant, I think, especially to the novel therapeutics theme of our CDT. So I think really any sort of engineering, physical sciences, mathematics, life sciences, medical sciences is potentially relevant. You just need to justify it within your application. So, we want to see how the experience that you have so far has led you to apply for this CDT and has led to an interest in AMR. Okay, I hope that answers that question. Next question is, are professors, supervisors involved at any point in the selection process? Yes, they absolutely are. So they will be doing the shortlisting. So everyone, all of our interview panels are made up of the supervisors for the particular projects that we've got on offer, according to different themes. You'll be allocated to the different theme panels depending on what projects you've chosen in the application form, and then the shortlisting itself will be performed by the people who are on the interview panels. So the supervisors, so it's a combination of the supervisors for the projects we have on offer and the CDT management team. And sometimes those are both. So for example, I am the CDT director, but I also am a supervisor for one of the projects we have on offer, and a number of my colleagues are the same. Okay, are the projects shared in theme 1? Are the projects shared in theme 1 relevant to the program, since with my background in advanced? Sorry, I'm not quite sure if I understand this question. I think it means, does the advanced manufacturing, is the advanced manufacturing also relevant to theme 1? And theme 1 is infection prevention. Yes, I think it could be relevant to theme 1 from the point of view of perhaps the manufacturing of antimicrobial surfaces or other antimicrobial products, or sort of medical device, sort of infection prevention in medical devices. I hope that answers that question. And there is another one. I've been out of education working for a few years, and I haven't done any research projects in this time. So if I got to the interview stage, I would be talking about work I've done a few years ago. Would this put me at the disadvantage, be acceptable? I don't think it would particularly put you at an advantage or a disadvantage, to be honest. I think the only disadvantage might be that you've forgotten some of the things, but I suspect that you will do a bit of revision and remind yourself of all of the bits and bobs that you did. I think, I don't know, with my PhD supervisor hat on, I've supervised PhD students that have come straight out of a master's, and I've supervised PhD students who have worked for a while and then come back to do a PhD. And there are pros and cons to both. And not necessarily, I don't necessarily mean this from my point of view, you know, I prefer a student that's straight out of an MC, or I prefer a student that's straight out of that's worked for a while. I think it's more to do with pros and cons for you. You know, I guess if you've just done an MSc, you know, you will have probably done a project very recently, and you'll know all of the reference management softwares, and, you know, you'll be up on how best to do literature reviews and, you know, search terms and stuff like that. But you might not have some of the really important life and context experience that you might have gained through a few years of work. If the work that you've been doing over the last few years is relevant to AMR, then, you know, that might make you potentially a better candidate than somebody who's just straight out of a master's, because you have a deeper understanding of the context. So, sorry, I don't feel like I've answered your question, but it's absolutely acceptable, and please do go ahead and put in an application. Another question, should we make all of our 3 choices from the same theme? If not, does this affect your opinion if we choose differently? Good question. So not necessarily. I think it's totally okay to have interests across these different themes. And, you know, personally, my research fits in mostly in theme 1, but it doesn't mean that I wouldn't do any research in any of the other themes. What you choose is there more to guide us in what panel to put you on. I suspect that probably students will choose within a theme, or maybe across 2 themes, rather than across all 3 themes. If you only choose 1 project, you will go to that theme. If you choose 2 projects, you might go to one of those 2 themes. If you choose 3 projects, if 2 are in one theme and the other one is in another, then you will go to the panel where the 2 projects are. And if you choose your 3 projects across the three themes, it's difficult to say, you might end up in any one of the panels. And it actually, where you might end up could be governed by simply how many applicants we have per theme. So you might end up in the one that has had the least applicants, just so we can balance how many students each panel is interviewing. Good question. Can we put a priority on the projects that we choose? So the form as it is now doesn't allow you to do that. If you really do have a preference for a particular project, I would suggest that you email us on that CDT-AMR at ucl.ac.uk email to say, you know, these are my choices in order of preference, or you contact the supervisor of the preferred project that you are interested in. So, you know, if it's really important to you that we know which is your preferred project, then please email us to let us know this. Yeah, I think in future years we will try to make it so that you can choose in order of preference as well, or we give you a little window to say, this is my order of preference. But yeah, failed to do that this year, and it only came up once it was too late. So sorry for that. We're learning as we go, I'm afraid. Okay, we have about 10 more minutes. We don't have to use them all, of course. Are there any more questions for me? Thank you for all of the questions that we have had. I think we've covered a lot of the really important stuff. So thank you all for asking those. Okay, it looks like we maybe don't have any more questions. So I would like to thank you all very much for attending the virtual open day and for all of your really useful questions. I hope it's been useful for you. We have recorded this session, so we're going to upload this on our website. And yeah, if you have any other questions, please do email us on that. Email cdt-amr@ucl.ac.uk, and we will answer them as quickly as we can. All right, I'm going to stop recording, and that will be the end of that. How do I stop recording? Here.